This video might have been a long time coming for some of my subscribers, especially if you can figure out the meaning behind my YouTube channel name. I'll give you a hint. Back when Tower of God fans could only read scanlations from a group called The Company, they gave most characters slightly different names to the official translation. So I gotta wonder, what's Rachel's alternative name then? Trolling aside, I don't believe Rachel is a positive, lovable character in any sense of those words. I'm not trying to portray her as anything other than what she is, so before you click off this video or leave a nasty comment down below, just hear me out. Firstly, I'll be comparing my stance to how the general public approaches this topic, and then I'll cover the nuances of her character motivations, beliefs, and relationships with key characters like Bam. If there's one thing ToG fans are notorious for, it's their combined hatred of one character. That is, of course, Rachel, who is even more despised than infamous antagonists such as Griffith from Berserk. But for what reason? Well, she abandoned Bam in his isolated cave to climb the tower. She manipulated Kun into lying to Bam about her identity. She rejected and betrayed Bam to become the heroine of the story by throwing him into FUG's clutches. She pretended to be lower body disabled so that Kun would feel responsible for carrying his dead friend's only family up the tower. She stabbed Dan's legs, ironically disabling him for a long time. She joined up with murderous villains like Hoquin. The list goes on and on. So naturally, the first line webtoons comments you'll often read when viewing the official ToG translations are usually along the lines of, "I hope Rachel dies or commits suicide." This is not rare, this is not isolated to the English version of the Naver site either. It's constant, pervasive across most social media platforms, and if you dare say anything different about her character, you'll often be struck down with abuse and downvotes. Hell, even SIU pointed out that he dislikes these Rachel hate spammers popping up. Though his words were much nicer than my own. That's not to say there aren't online places where you can speak your mind about her character. For example, the ToG subreddit is not as quick to hide or discount any meaningful conversations, but even then, it's not always welcoming. But the issue is not that people hate her. That's fine, I do too. What's mildly concerning though are the debates where people automatically equate your interest in Rachel to being a fanboy who believes her actions weren't heinous. There's no nuance, simply you like this character that did bad things, so you must secretly think she's good. For some reason, because Rachel's not a good person in the conventional sense, she can't be a good character. So that long preface sets the stage for my first argument. You don't have to like a character to respect the intentions behind their writing. What I simply mean is a despicable, detestable character does not equal a poorly written one. In fact, the opposite outcome applies if that was the author's goal all along. SIU wants you to hate Rachel, because if you don't, then it makes Bam and Co.'s quest to foil her plans and make her pay for her crimes look like some sort of nonsensical joke. Now, that's not to say that you can't have fun, beloved villains, but SIU has specifically chosen to portray an ugly, hypocritical, and weak antagonist. He's demonstrated that time and time again, even stating that he doesn't see her as a villain, but more the polar opposite of Bam. Now, I'll explore all this in more depth very soon, but the idea is that Rachel represents the vilest and most desperate traits of regulars pursuing their deepest desires by ascending the tower. Her villainy spawns from her own weakness, not her inherently villainous intentions. She's not alone in this desperation either, because this hostile and competitive environment tests your bonds and brings out the worst in people who are clinging to a dream, however minuscule that might be. In this case, Rachel's dream is to peer upon the stars, because she is too afraid of the night. It's pathetic, right? While ordinarily this might invoke some sympathy from the audience, her prior actions to this quote render any chance of affection mute. And that's part of the intention. It's no coincidence that she reveals this key motivation almost immediately after committing attempted murder against a poor boy who saw her as a motherly figure. The anger fans feel is warranted. I'm not arguing against that or trying to depict her in some misunderstood light, even if there's hints that more is going on behind her betrayal. She deserves the hate, but to stifle conversation about her character because your emotional bias can't accept that some people find her fascinating is downright silly. We know there's more to her background. We know that her toxic relationship with Bam spawns much of his internal growth. We know that her involvement with Wagner is a critical element of future plotlines. There's stuff to be intrigued by. There's stuff to talk about. I shouldn't be seeing downvotes galore on posts that highlight aspects of her character writing or theorize potential future events. It's ridiculous that even the most neutral stances are somehow refuted on the basis of she's so infuriating that it's not even worth talking about her. Let people enjoy a character. Let them speculate. Let them even draw fan art without getting random commenters dismissing their content for this incredibly petty reason. Okay, so now hopefully those who were a little apprehensive about this video's contents might have stayed through to this next section. As I said before, I'll be diving more heavily into the writing behind her, and no, I won't just be covering the positive elements of SAU's depiction. Rachel is a unique antagonist archetype, because she's not beautiful, not exceedingly intelligent, not physically capable, and not overtly skilled with powers like light-bearing. Put bluntly, there's nothing remarkable about her. Even her irregular status was only facilitated by Bam opening the door to the tower by himself. She just slipped in. In terms of her personality, Rachel has petty, narcissistic, and hypocritical streaks, while also being quick to blind rage. That's not to say there hasn't been moments where she demonstrated likable qualities. For instance, despite asserting that Bam had taken everything away from her to Hedon, she still chose to help inform his moral compass as an impressionable child, teaching valuable life lessons and spending seemingly large amount of time entertaining him with stories and games. This was not a facade. It's obvious that she does care for him in some manner, even if that affection is superseded by her dream of reaching the top floor of the tower. In that way, it's very much a depiction of shifting priorities. The kicker is that the few antagonists in Battle Shonen series who don't possess many superficially strong qualities are still able to challenge the protagonist in some physical or mental way, whether that be through manipulative schemes or Olive's civic abilities. Rachel doesn't have anything going for her. She does not make up for a lack of internal or external strength with clever shenanigans, because they ironically backfire. In fact, she is more often the pawn of others' long-term machinations, such as when Hedon would only let her become the chosen heroine by delivering on a still unknown promise, or when Gustang discreetly inserted the treasure-eating stingray into her body to snatch King Zahad's bracelet. She's used more often than she uses. So what's interesting is that the primary reason she comes into conflict with Bam's group is the toxic, emotionally charged relationship they both share, and the villainous team she's a part of. Up until the most recent arc, Bam's continual quest to understand why she'd choose her dream over his familial love has left a wake of destruction in its path, hurting all those around each individual. And the fault does not lie solely with the antagonist in this scenario. A huge chunk of Bam's character arc has been devoted to the ways in which these confrontations with Rachel changes him as a person. I actually covered this in my discussions of chapters 312 to 314, but in summary, Season 1 Bam is an innocent boy clinging obsessively to his only source of warmth, still believing that he can convince her to return despite understanding that there's more to this abandonment. Season 2 Part 2, or the Hell Train Saga, is the emo Viol stage, where he begins to take on a possessive, immature and creepy persona, aggressively disregarding Rachel's words without even listening. He wants her back and he isn't going to take no for an answer. The most recent arcs have revolved around Bam's apathy towards Rachel, as he's gone through the motions time and time again and is now becoming emotionally disconnected from this prior bond. While he does listen to her, his experiences within the tower help inform his cold breakdown of her admittedly hypocritical perspectives. He's trying desperately to not care anymore and focus on those important to him now. There's an important interaction between Rachel's rejections of Bam's love and his experiences with tower inhabitants as he chases her that ultimately shapes much of his overarching character arc. It's not always clear what SIU is going for, and he definitely backpedals or aggresses towards his Season 1 counterpart sometimes, but there's genuine progression that a lot of people miss or downplay. Rachel is an integral component to this growth, if not the most integral. Her presence is pervasive in the grander story too, even when she's not present, which brings me to our next point. One misconception spread around some parts of the fandom is that Rachel could die at any second and it wouldn't influence anything other than Bam's character. I'm of the personal belief that this notion might subconsciously fuel many of the people calling for a slaughter in chapter discussions too. Like when someone will ask questions like, why hasn't the author killed her off yet? Now sometimes this is rhetorical, and sometimes I don't consider how central her involvement has been literally from chapter 1, but I'm not going to diss them for these type of complaints. Not everyone carefully reads and pores over every detail in the series, which is completely understandable. Not everyone cares that much. To give an extremely broad example, I really enjoy Game of Thrones, but relative to many fans, I'd say I've got a superficial appreciation. I make frequent mistakes when talking about the series and don't dig deeper into anything other than the world building. So I get that there's different levels at which people will pay attention to a story and its characters. That being said, for those of you that aren't convinced of her importance, I'll try to provide a couple of really solid examples to prove my point. So Rachel has clear personal ties to Arlene, who is Bam's mother and Zahad's romantic interest turned adversary. The organization built by V and Arlene opposed Zahad directly, and it was crucial to the conflict that solidified Zahad's position as the king. Bam specifically recalled Rachel's hair being pulled by a large person while trying to rescue her in the Crown game, which coincides with SIU's repetitious comments in blog posts that their background has not been properly divulged yet, and we notice it's crucial because of how it was emphasized during the Dalla show arc. Rachel made a big deal of Hidden and Thug to help push her up the tower, which still hasn't been explained to this day. All we know is that pushing Bam out from the bubble was a part of the plan that Hyorin, Yuhan Sung, and Jin Sang Ha facilitated. She has a working relationship with Wagner, who is a core component of Zahad's past, present, and future, being the Prince of the Red Light District. This connection has been explicitly stated by SIU to be one of the most important moments in the overall storyline. These 4 examples are all super relevant. They are all going to play a role in uncovering crucial background information to Bam's entrapment, Zahad's rise to King of the Tower, the Administrator's intentions, and the development of Thug and the 10 Great Families. They ultimately make Rachel critical to the narrative, whether you like it or not. For the sake of fair criticism, I'll be acknowledging some of the flaws in Rachel's character writing. They do exist, and are one of the most common complaints from the general ToG fandom that I absolutely agree with. To start off, there comes a big problem with making an aggressively average character, let alone an antagonist, in a world where mental and physical competition is at the heart of progression. How do you write plausible reasons for someone like Rachel to climb the tower when realistically she'd be one of those killed on the floor of tests? Well, the answer is that it's doable, but really difficult to achieve without serious amounts of convenience. Rachel is no exception. While SIU has incorporated some clever ways in which it makes sense narratively for her to get to the next floor, such as Rachel faking the severity of her injuries from Ho in Season 1, playing up her disability and Kun's affection for Bam in order to force him into carrying her. There are many other story beats that don't get the same writing treatment. For example, Hokun's inclusion in her team is the only reason she was able to survive the Hell Train tests. And then you have these situations where her physical strength is conveniently bolstered by external forces, such as Gus Dang deciding to randomly insert the treasure-eating stingray into her. Why Rachel? Why not someone else? Is it just because she's too weak to notice? SAU hasn't explained that, so I find it hard not to feel like it's a plot device, because she ordinarily would struggle against many of these enemies in the Hell Train puzzle. This kind of absurd convenience is not always the case, as I demonstrated, but there's validity to the claims that she's assisted and on an unreasonable number of occasions. And with that, I think I've covered all I wanted to say. The problem with this type of scripted content is that it can often come across as condescending when I'm really just trying to clearly emphasize how firmly I believe in my opinions. I revised the script a lot, so I'm hoping this video isn't too maligned, but I guess we'll see. Oh, and if you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.